At the same time, it is environment friendly. It means it is going to give the environment in a same or a better manner to the other SDGs. So this we are going to talk about in the upcoming slides. Before going to the slides, it is important to see this particular graph. See what is happening, what this particular graph shows. This shows that there are some scattered elements, which are basically the countries, okay? Now, this particular rectangle which you are seeing, it says that these are the countries which have 80% of the world population, and their average, what I say is per capita energy consumption is less than or equal to 100 gigajoules. So this is something very, very less. And this is how they define the Human Development Index of those countries. So if the development index is lower, that means it is very much clear that those countries are basically bound to have scarcity of resources, and the development, the happiness, the health, the poverty, and all those things will be mattering much. So what is required is to increase this gigajoules per capita, which selected countries do have. So somewhere around 300 to 400 gigajoules per capita, if some country is able to achieve, that means their human development is going to be far better. And the prosperity of the nation basically is something which we measure in terms of energy consumption. But how to get this energy? This energy is available. When I say energy, one thing which must be clear to all of us is that when we talk about electricity, when you talk about energy, basically electricity is a form of energy. Okay? So in other sense, electricity is a subset of energy. There are other ways of even burning a firewood is basically a source of energy. But here we will be talking more about electricity in the sense that electricity comprises of maybe around 60% of the total energy consumption. So if that is a huge energy consumption, which is happening in terms of electricity, then if we are able to optimally, make these sources environment friendly, our energy consumption is going to be environment friendly further. So these energy sources can be a thermal power station, can be a nuclear power station, it can be hydro, wind power, biogas or biomass, and of course solar. So many different energy sources are possible. But when we talk about different sources, an important comparison of technologies becomes essential. And some important aspect here is, so for example, if I make a 100 megawatt hydropower station, it will require around 1,000 to 5,000 hectares of submergence of land. And of course, the plant load factor, the capacity with which it will be operating in general will be around 25 to 30%. When we talk about a 1,000 megawatt nuclear power plant, see, the fuel requirement is so less. It is around 2 to 18 trucks per year, that's all. And the emissions are almost negligible, and the waste is less than 1 ton per year for a 1,000 megawatt plant. On the other hand, if we compare it with the coal-fired plant, that is thermal power plant, we will be requiring a huge amount of coal per day for generating that much amount of electricity. At the same time, there will be large emissions of, these greenhouse gases, and there will be a large ash generation further. Basically, the thermal and the nuclear power generation, they essentially differ in one basic aspect. And what is that? That is basically how we generate steam. So if you see the thermal power station, it is basically a boiler, which is actually getting heat from a thermal source, which essentially can be a diesel, a gas, or maybe coal, burning of coal. On the other side, if you talk about nuclear, it's basically nuclear fission, which is resulting in generation of heat. And this heat is basically utilized to generate steam. And of course, this particular portion you might be seeing is same for both of the plants. This is just for giving a small brief difference. Another difference which we can mark up here is that in thermal and nuclear power generation, for example, if two bundles, these are the nuclear fuel bundles which you are seeing on their side, and they are equivalent to 700 tons of indigenous coal. So this is the power density of this nuclear fuel, that this many bundles only will be able to generate that much amount of million units, which 700 tons of indigenous coal will be required to do so. And with such a huge amount of coal to be handled, there is a large port and rail infrastructure requirement. And you might be hearing nowadays that because of these infrastructure issues, the coal deployment at the thermal power station is becoming difficult. The present Indian electricity scene is also interesting. If you see, as of February, and now in fact, I think at the fiscal year ending March 2022, this figure is around 399 gigawatts. So we have an installed capacity base of 399 or say 400 gigawatt of electricity. And we are approximately generating around 1400 billion units in a year. It's a huge amount. And that is why we are the third largest producer of electricity in the world. Surprising, huh? This is really surprising. But even after becoming a third largest producer in the world, there are issues that we have large power cuts. We don't have electricity, supplies to many of our areas. And inevitably, there are just, there will be disruption in the supply. And our electricity demand is growing further. Surprisingly, what is happening is our per capita consumption, if you see, in the year 2019-20 is around 1208 units per person. So one person is on an average consuming 1208 units of electricity in a year, which is very, very low. It is approximately one-third of the world average. And if you see the developed countries like US and Canada, this figure is somewhere around 13,000 to 14,000 units. And this itself is an earmarker which says that these countries are more prosperous. People are enjoying a developed life there. They are not having scarcity of important essential resources in their life. So what essentially means is that the electricity consumption per capita is basically a kind of indicator of the prosperity of a country. Now, continuing with this energy scenario, so we are approximately 2.4% of the world surface area, but we are having around 18% of the world population. Very significant proportion of global poor are there in our country. And the issue here is the per capita electricity consumption is low because we have got a huge population with us. And we are expecting that about 40% of the population in 2030 would be urban as against 30% currently. So what exactly is happening here? The population is expanding. Incomes are growing. And as a result of which, what is going to happen? Exponentially, there will be an increase in demand for this urban amenities like housing, energy, transport, water, etc. And it is also estimated that more than half of India of 2030 is yet to be built. And of course, this all requires a lot of energy. But when such a huge amount of energy requirement exists in our country as a responsible nation committed to the world on certain fronts. Our Prime Minister, in COP26, he is committed. He said that we are going to reduce our emission intensity to 33 to 35% as compared to the 2005 levels. Our intended national determined contribution is built basically on three different elements. We want to reduce the emission intensity, we want to increase the forest cover, and renewable energy in power generation is going to take a bigger role. And of course, a collaborative approach among the developing and developed countries is an essential element. Now, if we want to do all this, what can be the country's mitigation strategies? And these can be a clean and efficient energy. We have to promote that. We have to have more enhanced energy efficiency industries. Of course, resilient urban center. We need to promote waste to wealth, sustainable green transportation network, afforestation, and so on. So all these will be our mitigation strategies, which we are going to take further. Our clean energy objectives, as per INDC, would be to achieve about 40% of the cumulative electric power installed capacity from non-fossil fuel-based energy. And we are putting a deadline of 2030. Now, when we say non-fossil fuel-based, means that includes renewables and nuclear as such. And of course, nuclear is going to play an important role in achieving these INDC objectives. And these INDC objectives are basically, a kind of framework which every country should have so that an environment-friendly future and, of course, present can be achieved. When we say nuclear is going to play an important role in these clean energy technologies, what actually we mean by that? What we mean by that is, if you just look at this particular graph, you will find that nuclear, these figures are basically what? These are life cycle emissions of electricity generation technologies. That means this much grams per carbon dioxide per unit of emission will happen. If we generate 1 unit of power through these technologies, how much gram of carbon dioxide equivalent will be released to the environment? And we all know that carbon dioxide is one and major responsible element of climate change. Now, if you see here, nuclear is basically, if you see hydro, wind, and solar to some extent, they are all at the same level. and against what we see at the coal and gas and biomass. Now, what is happening is this 12 also what we are seeing is because of the life cycle emissions. Because nuclear power plants, they do not emit, they do not generate any greenhouse gases during generation of electricity. But when we make a nuclear power plant, we need different technologies. We need cement transportation. We need, steel bars to be manufactured, and so many things. So indirectly, in manufacturing, in installing a nuclear power plant, we require to have all these industries working. And if these industries are basically provided with electricity which is not from a green source, then we also contribute slightly in indirect manner, and that is how this figure of 12 has come here. But in if you see in totality, this is at par with any renewable source. So that is how we say that clean energy technologies, nuclear is going to play an important role. If you see the nuclear power scenario, yes, in India versus world, we are having under construction 11 plants. Our installed capacity base is low, but it is improving further. It's around 7 gigawatt. We have a plan to increase our capacity base up to 22.5 gigawatt by the year 2031. And we had, 565 reactor years of safe operation, which is a record. And I will be covering in further slides that how we have performed so far. And that too, when we passed through the, regime of embargo, we did it ourselves, and we have proven to the world, our mettle, that how mature we are now in this technology. This is basically Dr. Bhabha's three-stage program, which is our Indigenous program, which is having 3 stages to be performed in sequential manner. The first stage where we have achieved maturity is this one, in which natural uranium is used as fuel, and we generate plutonium as a byproduct, which becomes a fuel to the second stage. And with the help of this fuel, we have got plenty of thorium in our country, but we have modest uranium. So that is why we want to switch over from uranium-based cycle to thorium-based cycle. Because once we enter in this thorium-based cycle, there will be a huge amount of energy potential available to the country. And from there itself, the stage 3 will start, and this will be basically a kind of sustainable stage where you yourself will be using thorium, converting into uranium-233, again reusing it as a fuel, and it will become a loop kind of thing. We will be having a huge potential of electricity available to our country for centuries. At the same time, when we are going through these 3 different phases, the government has also thought to increase the installed capacity base by taking up technologies from the foreign countries, and that is how we have now entered into partnership with Kudankulam. If you know the example of Kudankulam with Russian Federation, we are tying up with Japan, with the French government. We are working with USA and many other countries. So this is going to add to our present installed capacity base, and it will be at a faster pace. So what are the merits of nuclear power? See, it's a base load station. When I say base load station means it is going to give you an intermittent free, that is continuous source of supply 24/7. And it can lead to long-term base load requirement. It is basically on the principle of sustainable development and is indicating, or rather is moving us ahead towards energy self-sufficiency scenario, and long-term energy security of the country is going to be ensured. It is safe, clean, and environmental benign power because, as I told earlier, we have more than 565 reactor years of safe, reliable, and accident-free operation in the country. Not even a single event has happened so far. The life cycle greenhouse gas emissions are comparable to wind, hydro, and solar. And in fact, I am happy to share with you that in the last particular year, I'll just show you this graph before I say this. In the last particular year, we have recorded And another benchmark, if you see, is that our Indian nuclear power plants, they have run continuously for more than 1 year, 38 times. And out of these, around 4 times, we have been operating continuously for 2 years. And this proves that our maturity. This is a testimony to our strength, basically, in this particular technology. And this technology is basically not easily shareable. And the best part, another part is that among the lowest land requirement per megawatt. So if I have to, for example, if I have to go for a 10,000 megawatt light water reactor kind of nuclear power plant, I may require somewhere around 500 to 600 hectares of land only. Whereas in the case of solar and maybe in the case of hydro, it is going to be multiple times. But then when the nuclear power has got so many merits, there are challenges too. The first challenge which we generally face is disproportionate public fear. Yes, people have got fear. They have got their own, conceptions about this particular technology. But when the fear becomes disproportionate, it becomes really a challenge for every one of us. And as a result of that, what happens is we have been finding certain obstacles in certain areas. Now, what we have done is the government has come up with innovative and enhanced outreach and CSR programs across its sites across the nation. We have been conducting a lot of outreach activities. We have been informing the people, the students, or various stakeholders about different aspects of nuclear power. There are, of course, concerns of people about radioactive waste management, though it is very low in volume, as I told earlier in my slide. But then there is a provision available. There is a technology available to this. We never say waste disposal. We always talk about waste management. We have got provisions of managing the waste and how to extract good and useful things from that waste, and which can be again reused for different purposes. Of course, there is a capital needs are higher when we talk about a nuclear power plant. It means that its installation cost is quite high. But the best part is that its operating cost is very low, because what is happening is the fuel component, which is basically uranium fuel, which we get across mostly from our country as well as from abroad. There is not much of variation in the pricing. As a result, the operating cost of the nuclear power plants is low. We'll be talking about this in the upcoming slide. Then, of course, there are challenges in land acquisition for new sites. That engagement with the stakeholder is the only solution. So we are continuously working on this. And for example, when I talk about the tariffs, how this nuclear, and there's a tentative and indicative comparison shown here. For any tariff, because as a customer, as a consumer, I am worried about that when I am getting electricity at my home, how much I will be charged. Now, what happens is, if we compare a nuclear power scenario, the initial cost, which is in blue, is definitely high. Okay, but because, as I said, that the operating cost is low, over a period of time, when the time passes, with the payment of the debts, this cost reduces. Okay, and at the same time, this slightly increases. So the total the burden on the consumer is relatively low at that particular point of time. Whereas in the case of coal, for example, the initial cost is low, but the operating cost is high. But as they go further, this coal cost keeps on increasing dramatically, because the consumption is more, because nuclear power is more dense. Okay, so what happens is, for example, if today we start, if my electricity rate is ₹4 per unit, and same is with coal, maybe after 5 years or maybe after 10 years, you will find that our figures will be somewhere around 5 or so. But at the same time, coal figures may be doubled or even more. I can just share with you an example. I talked about Tarapur 1 and 2. This is somewhere in 1969 that plant started operating. And the electricity tariff, which was charged from consumer a few years back from now, was even less than ₹1. I think it was somewhere around 95 paisa per unit. So can you imagine this much low cost? And this could happen only because this particular fuel component is not driving the cost. So this is another advantage which I just wanted to share. This slide is another important, because people fear about radiation, about safety. So let me share with you that, friends, we are basically living in a radioactive world. This particular section, if you are seeing, this has got a cosmic component, terrestrial component, that is your motherland, your mountains, terrains, hills, everything covered. Then there is a gas called radon, which is available in ample in our breathing air. Then we ourselves are basically the source of radiation. When we talk about natural radiation, these are the four different sources. We can escape for a moment from, say, if we can live somewhere in the outside world where there is no cosmos available, there is no earth available, there is no air to breathe, there is nothing to eat also, but we cannot live ourselves because we have got in ourselves potassium 40 as one of the major radiation source. So we ourselves are basically radioactive sources. So there is nothing to worry about radiation as such, because around on an average across the world, we get around 2400 microsievert of radiation dose per annum. Okay, this can be higher, it can be lower depending upon which place you are living. On the other side, man has made so many sources like hospitals, thermal, transport, factories, mining, fallout, everything. Even our daily use items, exit signs, this illumination boards. There are so many things, gas mantles, so many things are there, especially in the hospitals. Nuclear medicine is playing a key role. So we are basically surrounded by radiation. And when I talk about radiation means, I am basically focusing on ionizing radiation, nuclear radiation, okay, or atomic radiation. But otherwise also we are surrounded by radiation. There are towers across us. We are on mobile all the time. There are microwave towers. There are microwave ovens in the houses. There are infrared sensors and emitters. So many things, so many gadgets are available across us, which are really exposing us day in and day out. So the important thing here is that radiation is inescapable, it is inevitable, and it is omnipresent. So we do not have to worry about this. This is there from the past, it is there in the present, it will be there in the future. And for this, what we are doing? So as I said earlier, we have been creating public awareness activities through different, these are some of the modes I am sharing with you, that how we are reaching out to the people to present them with the facts. We want to address their misconception. We want to allay their fears in a more credible and responsible manner. And this is, I must thank the government for taking this initiative, because maybe a decade back or so, visiting a nuclear power plant was a real challenge. Okay, and people, scientists and engineers like us, speaking to the general public and speaking on different issues was very rarely visible. But now the government has really come up with an open mind, and there are so many visits happening. We have been outreaching to so many people, different stakeholders all the time. In fact, pre-COVID-19 scenario, the year preceding that, we could touch a figure of around 60 lakh students, teachers, faculty members, bureaucrats, farmers, villagers, general public, everyone. So a figure of around 60 lakhs in that particular year we could touch. And in fact, this is one of the way today, also when I'm just talking to you, when I'm sharing certain facts with you, it is basically one of the way to reach out to you and to address your misconceptions or to allay your fears or concerns. Now, friends, when I talk about this different kind of awareness, we do believe in neighborhood inclusion. As a responsible organization, this Nuclear Power Corporation and the government as such are basically working on these major areas in our neighborhoods: healthcare, education, skill development, infrastructure, sanitation. Of course, the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, we are part of that. And another thing which I would like basically you people to just make a mark of is, these are some of the publications. Okay, we are just running a voluntary environment stewardship program. Wherein we talk about, we do activities of habitat conservation, nurture of flora and fauna, scientific studies, mud plat creations, publication of certain books, etc. And these are the pictures which you will find basically in the vicinity of the nuclear power plant. In fact, within our own boundary. So where the nuclear power plant basically is running, these all birds, butterflies, turtles, dolphins, all these kind of things, greenery which we are seeing here, wildlife you are seeing here, all these are basically from our own areas. So if a nuclear power plant is really harmful, or is it really polluting the environment, these are the most sensitive things. These creatures are more sensitive to any variation in the nature, and they are prospering like anything. So my submission here will be that whenever time permits, please do visit a nuclear power plant which is nearest to you. There are we have got a website available wherein you can just punch in your request. We can come down to you for speaking on different technical aspects, and we can definitely try to share with you certain facts and figures and try to allay the concerns of every one of us. So what is the way forward now? The way forward is that we have to promote clean energy in the country's energy mix. When I say this, it's my responsibility to share with you that I compared with coal, with nuclear, with hydro, with wind, and so on. But can we just promote one particular source over other? No. See, India is a very big country, lot of population, and the energy needs are exponentially increasing. And our demands are increasing. Definitely, we need to have more sources. So, what we are supposed to do? Can we rely only on nuclear or solar or wind alone? No. We require energy sources at present from all possible sources, but we have to deploy them in an optimal, in a more justified manner. So we are not going to basically, cover the other one. Each one has got its own importance in this country. So an optimal mix is basically the need of the hour. And of course, we expect that provision of carbon credit should be given to nuclear field because being an environment-friendly technology, just similar to what solar or wind is given. So this will definitely help us in reducing our tariffs. And of course, enhancing the energy efficiency. The star rating which you might be seeing in air conditioners, in refrigerators and all is an example of that. So we need to have an energy efficiency system. 100-watt bulb maybe a decade ago or so. Now you are burning 5 LEDs of 20 watt, giving much more light with much more efficient in much more efficient manner. So that is how we need to optimize and utilize our present resources. So this particular slide I wanted to show, but because the presentation has not worked well, I just want to show you here this particular. Okay, so what you are seeing here basically is a person, a common man, who is sitting, his heavy tents. His chain smoker can be seen that he has got all along different cigarettes. He is worried about his red light, which again shows a symbol X-ray. Now this label X-ray is really frightening him. Actually, the doctor has asked him to undergo an X-ray to just see what is the congestion level in the chest. But somewhere he has read that the radiation is harmful and all those things. Somewhere in the childhood, maybe some of his friends might have told this. But unfortunately, he's smoking this much of cigarettes, and every cigarette packet has got around 80-85% of a picture which shows the mouth ulcer, mouth cancer, and all. But he's ignoring that fact, and he's continuing with cigarette smoking. But somewhere, when he heard about this X-ray, he got tensed. Oh, this X-ray is really harmful to me. Now, this is basically an issue with the common public as far as the nuclear radiation is concerned, as far as the nuclear power is concerned. And as an ambassador to the correct information, it becomes our responsibility, each one of us, that we must reach out to the public, our friends, families, with factual information. We must ensure that the real and correct information flows and let people take their own judgment thereafter. So we need to address this. And to address this, I definitely would like to invite you all to just come forward and play your own role in spreading about the correct facts and figures of any source which is green and clean in nature, and let people, really enjoy fruit of it today as well as tomorrow. So with this, I conclude my session, and these are some pictures which I am just trying to show you. These are the operating nuclear power plants, which you can see the kind of greenery, the kind of environment is there. Whenever you go and visit a power plant, you will find that when a power plant is running by your side at full power, there won't be any noise pollution, there won't be any smell, there won't be any visible, air pollution, and all things you'll find as natural as you are seeing here. Now, when these are the nuclear power plants under construction, you can see the kind of construction, the kind of technology which is deployed. It's a huge exercise. It's really marvelous. It's unimaginable to just have a look at these plants when they are being built. You can see the kind of infrastructure which is being prepared and the kind of greenery. And this site is under development. Once it starts operating, the scene will be totally different. This is another picture which shows the kind of construction which takes place in a nuclear power station. So with this, I end up my presentation, and I'll invite any queries. I'll be happy to answer that.
Thank you, sir, for providing us or enlightening us with your valuable experience about this nuclear power. Because, as we know, there has been a lot of misconception about this nuclear power, or we call it related problems, issues with nuclear power. So I think the way you have presented and clarified a lot of things, which will, as because it's going to remain in our YouTube channel, and as we are in the central part, and a lot of students they watch this channel, so they are definitely going to get benefit out of this lecture, whatever you delivered. And I'm sure because misconceptions will, I won't say that in a one moment this will go down, but slowly this is going to go down, and definitely this clean fuel, which we consider, which is a newer thing to all of us, and that's going to benefit all of us in our future. So thank you very much, and I also again thanks all the viewers who have watched this or who are going to watch it and take the benefit of the lecture and the programs that we do. Regional Science Center Bhopal is doing throughout the year. Take advantage of it and try to learn science and acquire science. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Contemporary importance which is significant to be discussed, then we can include that. And and with this background now